Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It depends when you are watching this podcast by Group D for the Influence and Negotiation podcast assignment. We have Fatur, Tasya, Kim, import from Korea, Rini,
Hai.
Pak Faik,
Hai.
and Pak Son Haji.
Hi.
Hey, applause to us first. Okay, so today we are talking about food. Who's not interested for food? Everybody does, but we are not going to talk about our favorite food like rendang, mie ayam, bakso, or kimchi. We are going to talk about the more important stuff, food security, in a much bigger scale and importance to keep the world running. So let's go. Before anybody talks, I've been reading about the pillars of food security. There are food availability, access, utilization, and food stability. We will discuss about them later on. We will also discuss about world population and its relation with food availability and access. Then we would like to know the policies to secure food in global and local levels. But first, let's bring up about the global food challenges to understand what we and the world are facing. The climate change and demand versus population. Mbak Rini, you have done your research. Please start share your takes on this.
Yep. Thank you, Rizky. So, talking about climate change, many people think climate change mainly means warmer temperatures, but the temperatures is the only beginning of the story. Nowadays, the consequences of climate change have brought many disasters such as intense droughts, water scarcity, severe fires, rising sea levels, flooding, and even catastrophic storms. All those kinds of things could affect the agricultural sectors and impact several levels for both farm and non-farm household. At the farm and household level, climate change impacts may reduce income level and stability through effects on productivity, production costs, or prices. Such variations can drive sales of productivity capital such as cattle, which reduce long-term household productive capacity. At national level, exposure to climate risk can trigger shocks in agricultural production and food availability, with risk of market disruptions, effects on supply and storage system, as well as increases in agricultural commodity prices. This will impact the accessibility and stability of food supplies for the entire population, particularly in countries with significant shares of the population spending a large part of their income on food. This triggers macroeconomic effects for countries for which agriculture is an important part of GDP and or constitutes an important source of employment. At a global level, climatic shocks impacting areas of global importance for food supplies can have remote impacts through effects on supply flows and food price spikes with increased market volatility and impacts on bilateral contracts and or import-export behavior with disruption on trade patterns. So what the other challenge for global food security is demand versus population. Over the next 35 years, the growing global population will demand more food than has ever been produced in human history. A growing population means more mouths to feed. The expanding global population is getting wealthier and richer people tend to eat more and demand food that is resource intensive to produce particularly meat and dairy. World population is expected to grow by over a third or 2.3 billion people between 2009 and 2050. If we compare this is a much slower rate of growth than the one seen in the past 4 decades, during which it grew by 3.3 billion, or more than 90%. Nearly all of this growth is forecast to take place in the developing countries. And at the same time, income per capita in 2050 is projected to be a multiple today's level. There is a consensus among analysts that recent trends whereby the economies of developing countries have been growing significantly faster than the developed ones are likely to continue in the future. So these trends mean the market demand for food would continue to grow. Demand for both food and animal feed uses to projected to reach some 3 billion tons by 2050, up from today's nearly 2.1 billion tons. The advent of biofuels has the potential to change some of the projected trends and cause world demand to be higher, depending mainly on energy prices and government policies. The demand for other food products that are more responsive to higher incomes in developing countries, such as livestock and dairy product and vegetable oils, will grow much faster. So that's the problem of the climate change. And back to the host, Rizky.
Okay, so we learn about the global challenges, at the global level, but because we are Indonesia, let's explore more about the outlook in Indonesian food security. Maybe Pak Sonhaji can explain it to us.
Okay, thanks, Rizky. Talking about the Indonesia food security challenges and population growth. So basically, Indonesia population in 2050 is projected more than 330 million people. Demand for food is expected to increase significantly as quadruple by 2050, according to the study from Australian Bureau of Agriculture and Resource Economic and Science. So at the same time, the agri-food sector faces challenges to increase its production and productivity growth. The most significant demand growth is projected for meat, and then dairy product, fruit, vegetables, and among urban consumer. Food security is important goal for Indonesia, and the country has made progress in staple food production. So like rice and maize are now widely available, but import of high value and processed food have increased fivefold since early 2000 because local production could not keep up with the demand. Today, Indonesia food security challenges are more about affordability and nutritional value of food. So government and all ecosystem have to work together for implementation of the policies and incentive to accelerate sustainability farming and promote food security in Indonesia. I think that is the challenges regarding for the food security considering the population growth by 2050, Pak Rizky.
Okay, that's quite scary. Thank you, Mbak Rini and Pak Sonhaji, for making us more concerned about these issues. But after understanding all of the challenges, why don't we start exploring about the solutions? Maybe Pak Sonhaji, please start sharing about some solutions, if you may. Thank you.
Okay. Let's talk about the sustainability farming. Yeah, this is as one of the solution. Why sustainability farming is more important now, and why it is important for our well-being. So basically, the demand for food is growing globally as the world population exploded. To meet this demand, agriculture need to increase yield without compromising the ability of future generation to provide for their food requirement. Sustainable farming is very broad, and this is an umbrella term of growing food, fiber, plant, or animal product using method that will also nurture society, the environment, and the economy. Sustainable farming is important because it's offer a solution to the problem caused by the way most of our food is growing today. Today's industrial farming method are depleting our natural resources through monoculture and the overuse of pesticide, fertilizer, among other practices, while leaving people with unequal access to food and nutrition. What are sustainable farming practices and method? Basically, there is not an exact recipe for how to operate sustainable farming. Some of the top ways in which people can practice sustainable farming, like adopting agroforestry practices, applying integrated pest management, grow with hydroponic, aquaponic, urban agriculture, rotating crop, polyculture farming, integrating livestock and crop, and also sustainable communities. So that is from the perspective of the sustainable farming as one of the solution, Rizky.
Yeah.
Oh.
Interesting, Mas Wan.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you, Pak, for explaining about sustainable farming.
Yeah.
I think it is very important for us to get more familiarity with this issue. Now I think we have the expert for Indonesian government policy about to explain how Indonesia government's takes measures regarding this issue, Pak Faik.
Okay, thank you, guys. Yeah, just I'm following to the Pak Son says, yeah. But we know that Indonesia has prepared for this, for the crisis of food and sustainability of food. So Indonesia basically is in transforming, guys. And how we start from? Indonesia government start from transforming the policy. We have some policy, basic policy, and then others to this. So we can see in Indonesia we have some four regulation that we use to sustainability food. First is of course the food law in Indonesia according to main legal basis for food development, and then the second one is presidential decree. Is it in I think in 2021 last year's Indonesia have also the committee of the for the implementation and achievement in SDGs. You know what is this for successful in 17 UN programs according to food also. And then the third one is Indonesia have also the presidential decree in 2020 on midterm development plan for 2020 until 2024. So I think we should not worry about this crisis in Indonesia, right? And then the last things for the regulation in Indonesia is the government have the presidential decree in 2021 on National Food Agency. So we have all of tools to solve this crisis food. That's all. And then, can I show to you the midterm program for Indonesian government and the long-term Indonesian government policy?
Sure.
It will be
So let's
interesting,
take a look.
Pak Faik, I think.
So let's take a look. And then I found some interesting from the PPS and Bapenas. So we have also the RJPM target. So I think we should share the screen. Okay, we switch the screen, and our government priority for the first things is end hunger. Of course, no one from this classroom wants to hunger, right? And then improve diets. Do you think it's okay, ma'am?
Sure.
Okay, should be diet, right? And then promote coastal and ocean-based food. We have a lot of ocean, right? And that's the potential for our food crisis. And then the second one is protect and restore natural resources. Yeah, we see in the newspapers, in the media, our food like fish is already stolen by the illegal,
Illegal
person
fishing.
and others, right? And then the others, Indonesia government have also the target to inclusive business. What is inclusive business? We are accommodating not only the organization that are already in the government, but also the private sectors. So everyone in this country is inclusive, support each other to solve this crisis of food, right? And then the other things program from our government is resilient and local food systems. So we see go with the green logo and others. It's supporting the local food, right? Even if we are having neighbors, small neighbors, all right now because of pandemic and others, everyone is cooking, right? And then selling to the application. That's the simple thing that we can do to support the food crisis. And then the last thing is inclusive governance. Yeah. Also, beyond everything, the government is should prepare the policy and others. So that's the government program of Indonesia. I think it's so interesting, guys.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Pak Faik, for giving us more comfort, so we don't have to be too scared.
But that's okay. We'll be diet, right?
Yeah, of course, of course, of course.
2030.
That's important. Okay, thank you, Pak Faik, once again. Now, I think we already discussed the problems, the solutions. I think we will go more into the details about the science and technology that will support the solutions themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Please, I think Tasha have done some extensive examinations on this one.
Yeah.
Please, Tasha, share your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Pariski. So, guys, now let's talk about science and technology for food security in the face of climate change. Yeah, as we know, the productivity of the grain segment of the agriculture industry is key to meeting global food demands. Yeah, you can see on the screen, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organizations estimate that to meet the food needs of the world population in 2030, the agriculture sector will have to produce an additional billion tons of grain per year, which is roughly a 50% increase over the productions of 2.2 billion tons in 2011. So, yeah, that's the role of science, technology, and innovation in ensuring food security is highly depend on the availability of sufficient natural resources. And according to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, science, technology, and innovations can play a critical role in producing more food by creating plant varieties with improved traits, as well as optimizing the inputs needed to make agriculture more productive. So the strategies that can be implemented include, first is for improved plant varieties and increase crop yield, and then soil management for increasing agriculture yields, and irrigations technology. This is technology that make water availability for food productions. Well, Rizky and you guys, there are numerous places where digital technologies have been used to promote food security. So the digital technology enables farmer and other people to connect with institutions and informations that eventually help in decreasing risk and uncertainty. So that's the perspective from science and technology for food security, Pariski.
Wow, great.
I think that's a very simple, but it really gives us a better understanding of the role of science and technology in providing us food security.
Yeah.
Thank you for all of the stakeholders out there for taking care of us about food
Thank
security.
you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, after we discuss about the for the science and technology, let's discuss about the supply chain in general. Maybe we can improve the supply chain or what? Let's talk about it with Fatur over here. Thanks, Fatur. Please share.
Okay. Thank you for the time, Babang Rizky.
Not drinking water.
Thank you, Babang Rizky. Okay. Actually, there are three main stages of the supply chains. The first is primary production or farming. The second is processing and manufacturing in the industry. And the last is distribution. Researchers and policymakers are now focusing their attention on how to optimize each of the stage. As food travels through every stage of the supply chain, it's used natural resources such as labor, water, energy, and fuel. So each transaction requires those involved to set a price that ensures the final product is affordable for the consumer. Mechanization and industrialization of agriculture enable fewer farmers to produce more food. Short food supply are one example of the potential for food to act as a driver of changes. That's for the basic supply chain.
Okay, but how about the supply chain of the future, Fatur?
Okay. For the future, I think supply chains for the future need to produce healthy and nutritious food, like Pak Faik said that diet that has been grown in environmentally friendly and ethical way, while also dealing with the significant challenges of a growing population that has Rini said, climate change and declining natural resource that was mentioned earlier. Consumers in turn have become more health and environment conscious and increasingly demand more locally produced, less processed food of known origin. This is leading to a circular economy where the feedback between supplier and consumer is continuous. Resource consumption and waste are minimized, and the supply chain is no longer one directional. That's for the future of some
Interesting.
image.
Yeah. So after we discuss about the future, let's discuss about the current situation, or maybe, hopefully, it has been passed. The COVID,
Oh,
the
okay.
COVID supply chain ecosystem for food security.
Okay. For the because of the new normal of post-outbreak era, there are three points that I can share with you all. For the first is end-to-end go-to-market versatile. Companies therefore need to invest in omnichannel capabilities, especially focusing on online or digital solutions. This should also include product fungibility across channels. For the second, end-to-end supply chain management. As searching ingredient or merchandise becomes harder for business, one alternative is to work with a wider pool of suppliers, including regional ones, and keep larger strategic stocks. A broad product range is more expensive to maintain, but spread risk. An alternative is to simplify recipes and remove problem product from the portfolio, resulting in leaner, more manageable product range, less risk, and lower cost. That will also free up time and resource to invest in the development of innovative new product and combine a healthy lifestyle with minimal environmental impact. And the last is Industry 4.0. Digital supply networks are going to make business less vulnerable in longer term. Robots, for instance, reduce dependence on migrant labor. Track and trace solution help business zoom in on supply chain bottleneck, and the latest tools based on AI revolution business process and scenario management, thereby reducing both costs and risks. AI supports companies in predicting uptake in an early stage, anticipating future bottleneck, and choosing the best course of action. That's all from me, Babang Rizky.
Babang Rizky. So thank you, Fatur.
Okay.
That's a lot of information that we gained from you. I think now we're moving to Kim to share about his thoughts and experience for local food system and food waste management.
Okay, thank you, Rizky. It has been about 6 months I came to Indonesia from Korea. I still don't know much about Indonesia, but I'm still learning one by one. But when I first came here, there's something I didn't understand. One of them was that food waste. People usually throw away food waste with other garbage. In Korea, food waste is thrown away separately from general waste. Even if we try to dispose of food waste, we have to pay depending on weight of food waste. So I would like to focus on this part. According to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, 1.3 billion tons of food is wasted annually. There are some ways to solve food security through innovative technology and new breed development. However, reducing food waste and recycling can be a very useful solution at low cost. First of all, I think at the government level, citizens' awareness of food waste recycling should be raised through campaign advertisement or strong fines. Food waste can be used animal feed, compost, and bioenergy. However, in this current system, food waste is thrown away with other garbage. There is no room for recycling. However, reducing food waste is more important than recycling food waste. So I suggest that Indonesian supermarkets should make an effort to reduce amount of food waste by increasing discount rate for food. Yes, I give a good example. I often visit a supermarket named Papaya. Do you know Papaya supermarket?
Yes,
Yes.
of course.
Yeah.
Expensive one.
Yes, the main reason to go is that Papaya supermarket, they give offer 30% discount on lunchbox or various food from 7 p.m. And even after 8 p.m., the discount rate increased 50%. Therefore, not longer after 8 p.m., almost lunchbox are sold out every day. So this time discount policy always consumer make a purchase food at a low cost, and Papaya also reduce their food waste. As far as I know, I haven't been able to find any other places like Papaya. If they use this time-based policy, it will be great help to manage their inventory and save money by preventing food waste. And in the same vein, to reduce food waste, I propose the establishment of non-profit organization to support food aid. This new organization is responsible for purchasing at low prices or receiving donation food nearing their expiration date from various convenience stores such as Indomart or Alfamart. They gather them and provide vulnerable social groups for free or at very low cost. Yes, so this organization is established by support by government level. It takes time and money in the beginning. However, in the long run, they can save the social cost, and then the welfare level of the whole country is expected to improve.
Wow.
Yeah, that's all the
That's
from me.
very interesting. Okay, it's keep getting interesting from one resource to another resources, but due to time constraint, we have to close this as soon. We have learned about the problems, climate change, and world population, which affects food security and ecosystem. We also discussed about the policies from the macro levels to even micro levels that was just discussed by Kim earlier. It's interesting to know about the Papaya's policy and the food discount policy. And those are some of the solutions. We also discuss about sustainable farming and food recycling. Come back again to just mentioned by Kim and Pak Son Haji as well. And not only mentioning about the solutions, we also have covered about the importance of science, technology, and methods to support those solutions. I think in today's episode, hopefully it's not gonna be the last episode for all of us.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Because I think Kim still don't eat rendang, right?
I try it.
Because it's a form of the recycling food, right? Because rendang is not waste food because it's already warming until they destroy it.
Yeah.
It's one of
It is long lasting.
long-lasting
Yeah.
food.
But the taste is very delicious.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all. Hopefully you guys enjoy what we have been discussing until now.
Of course.
See you again. Last but not least, we would like to thank the lecturers for giving us the opportunity to gather and give you this podcast. Thank you, Ibnu. Thank you, professors. Thank you, me.
Bye.
Bye. See you.
See you then.